Welcome to today's video about our nation's government. We have learned how the Constitutional Congress developed the United States Constitution. In doing so, they created three branches, the legislative, executive, and the judicial, each with its own powers and responsibilities. Dividing up what the government is able to do among these three different and distinct branches is known as the separation of powers. Today, we're going to focus on two of these branches, the legislative and the executive, which appear in the first two sections of the Constitution. Remember that when the delegates met to change the Articles of Confederation, one of the biggest issues was how much power each state would have in the federal government. Big states felt that they should have more power because, after all, they had more people to represent. They rallied behind the Virginia Plan, which based the number of votes each state would receive on that state's population. Essentially, the bigger states would have more power under the Virginia Plan. Small states feared that the big states would simply run over them under the Virginia Plan. They felt they wouldn't have any power at all in the federal government if power was based on population. Small states united under the New Jersey Plan, which called for each state to have an equal number of representatives, regardless of population. Basically, the New Jersey Plan says that everyone has the same amount of power, regardless of size or population. A great compromise was reached that included some aspects of both of these plans. The delegates compromised and agreed that Congress would be made up of a bicameral or two-house legislature. The lower house would be based on population, like the Virginia Plan, and the upper house would give states equal representation, similar to the New Jersey Plan. The Constitution is divided into 7 sections called Articles. The first of these, Article 1, establishes our legislative branch. Article 1 is the longest part of the Constitution. Many believe that this is because the framers of the Constitution felt that the legislative branch was the most important part of the new government. We call our legislative branch Congress. Those who serve are called congressmen or congresswomen. Each term of Congress begins on January 3rd of odd-numbered years and lasts for 2 years. The 116th Congress began on January 3rd, 2019, and will last until January 3rd, 2021. The main job of Congress is to make laws. The word legislate means to make or enact laws, which is why it's called the legislative branch. There are many other duties of the Congress. These include confirming presidential appointments. There are many people that the president picks to hold offices in government, but Congress must approve these people that the president picks. Congress must also approve treaties. While the president is responsible for making treaties or agreements with other countries, Congress must approve any treaty made by the president. Congress grants money, which means Congress is responsible for passing budgets and giving government money to the many government departments to be able to work. All money spent by the government is given through the Congress. Only Congress has the power to declare war, though the president is allowed to send troops into battle in certain circumstances. Congress can also conduct impeachments, which is charging someone with doing something wrong, specifically a high-ranking government official, such as a U.S. president, a senator, or a federal judge. Impeachment charges are brought up in the House of Representatives, and then the person is put on trial in the Senate. As we've said, we have a bicameral or two-house legislature. The lower house is called the House of Representatives. The upper house is called the Senate. Together, the House of Representatives and the Senate make up our Congress, the legislative branch of the U.S. government. In the House of Representatives, the leader is called the Speaker of the House. The current Speaker of the House is Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat representing California's 12th district. Pelosi is the only female to have served as Speaker of the House and is the highest-ranking elected woman in United States history. The number of representatives each state gets in the House is based on that state's population. Every state gets at least one representative, but the bigger the state, the more representatives a state gets. The most populous state, California, currently has 53 representatives. There are 7 states with only one representative each: Alaska, Delaware, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wyoming. In all, there are 435 members of the House of Representatives. These representatives serve 2-year terms. The framers of the Constitution made it so that the representatives were elected frequently so that they would more closely represent the popular opinions and the will of the people. There are requirements for someone to serve in the House of Representatives. The qualifications are that the person must be at least 25 years old, must have been a U.S. citizen for the last 7 years, and must live in the state where the person was elected. Each state is divided into a number of congressional districts. The boundaries of each of these should roughly be the same, have the same number of people in them, but that's not always the case. The state legislatures draw these congressional district boundaries. Kentucky has 6 representatives in the House of Representatives, and therefore our state is divided up into 6 districts. Lexington is in District 6. In November 2018, Republican Representative Andy Barr was re-elected to serve as our representative in the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. The official leader of the Senate is the President pro tempore of the Senate, currently Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa. However, this is really just a ceremonial position. The person usually known as the leader of the Senate is the most senior member of the political party with the most senators, known as the majority leader. The current majority leader is Senator Mitch McConnell, a Republican from Kentucky. Each state gets 2 senators, which keeps the balance of power in the Senate split evenly between all the states. There are currently 100 senators. Senators serve 6-year terms and represent the entire state rather than only their congressional districts as in the House of Representatives. Elections are staggered so that no more than 1/3 of senators are up for re-election at a time. To serve as a senator, one must be at least 30 years old, have been a U.S. citizen for the last 9 years, and live in the state where they were elected. The second article of the Constitution, Article 2, establishes our executive branch. Article 2 details the position of the President of the United States and what powers that office holds. The main job of the executive branch is to execute and enforce laws. Remember, executive starts with the word execute. The leader of the executive branch is the President of the United States, sometimes called POTUS. A president is elected for a 4-year term. The 22nd Amendment limits someone from being elected to 2 terms in office, a total of 8 years. However, it is possible for an individual to serve up to 10 years as president if someone becomes president without being elected. For example, if a president were to die in office, the vice president would then become president. That person could then be elected for 2 more terms. The qualifications for being president include being a natural-born citizen of the United States, being a resident of the United States for the last 14 years, and being 35 years or older. The president has many important duties. Some of the main duties include being the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, which means the president is ultimately over all of the military. The president oversees 15 executive departments in the executive branch, like the State Department and the Treasury. The leaders of these departments, along with the vice president, make up the president's cabinet, his closest advisors. The president grants pardons in all federal criminal offenses. He negotiates treaties with other countries and serves as the main representative for a nation when dealing with other nations. The president appoints ambassadors, Supreme Court justices, federal court judges, and his cabinet members. Now, while he gets to pick who these people are, they must be approved by Congress before they can officially take office. Each year, the president makes a State of the Union address to Congress. This is now televised so the whole nation can listen to the state of our country. The president and the departments under him make sure that the laws are carried out or executed. The second in command, or next in line after the president, is the vice president. The current vice president is Mike Pence. The vice president is elected with the president. The vice president has 2 official duties, though takes on many more responsibilities depending on what the president needs him or her to do. The vice president presides over the Senate, and if there's ever a tie in the Senate, which is possible because there are 100 senators, so you could have a 50-50 tie, the vice president casts the tie-breaking vote. The other major duty of the vice president is to take over the presidency if the president dies. Because the vice president has to be able to step in and become president if necessary, the qualifications for the vice president are the same as those for the president. Now you know the basics of Article 1, the legislative branch, and Article 2, the executive branch. In the next video, we'll take a look at Article 3, as well as what your responsibilities are in our government.